This is the third video in a series for the Open Container Initiative. At this point, we have learned about the OCI projects. We have learned about containers generally. And guess what we get to talk about now? How to contribute. So before you are ready to contribute, make sure that you understand these three things. 1, what are the different OCI projects, or sometimes referred to as specifications, on an abstract level? 2, what are applied usage examples of these projects? So where would you find them out in the wild? And 3, how do you ask for help or clarification if you need it? If you can answer these 3 questions, then, my friend, guess what? You are ready to contribute. So what are the different kinds of contribution that you can do? Generally, you are likely going to fit into one of 3 scenarios. 1, definition. You have a goal or a need that is not addressed by a specification. 2, documentation. An idea or concept is not well explained enough for you to use it. 3, a feature request. You have a new exciting idea for an extension to a specification. Now, generally, a logical thing to do might be to open up an issue on the GitHub board that's associated with the OCI project. But for more complicated kinds of contribution, it's likely going to be like a small journey. So let's talk about this little journey, the journey of contribution. Step 1 in our journey is to develop an idea. Now, you're probably listening to this in the first place because you found a hole that isn't addressed by a specification. Or maybe you have an idea for an extension to make a project or specification better. Now, the first thing that you need to do is grab your computer, go to a comfortable working spot, and write. What is your use case or need? How did you try to use the current software that implements OCI, and why didn't it work for you? You need to tell your problem like a story. It's going to be easier for experts and non-experts alike to follow your train of thought and understand the issue that you're trying to address when you present it to them like this. The second step in this journey is discussion. So we've just written up our story, and maybe we post it to the issue tracker. Or we might post it to the development OCI list. And we want to capture people's attention. We want to point them to our issue. Now, what I want to suggest is that you do both of these things, that you create an issue on a GitHub issue board, but you also post to the list. The reason is that the issue tracker is going to let you keep a clean record of your progress over time. That's what version control is great for. But at the same time, it's very comfortable to talk about things via an email list. But the email list is going to get lost in the doldrums of people's inboxes, and it's not as easy to track progress. The third step in our journey of contribution is getting support and taking action. So there's always this point, every single time, folks, when discussion starts to die down. And so this is when you'll notice this. I assure you'll notice this. And this is when you need to try to synthesize the content that's been discussed into a concrete action. The maintainers will likely be doing this without thinking about it. So let me give you some quick examples. A documentation action, what would that be? If there's some functionality you thought was missing, and let's say it actually existed in the tool, but it just wasn't documented well, this would obviously call for an improvement to the documentation. So the maintainer can say, this thing exists, you didn't find it, let's work on this part of the documentation so that next time you do find it. The next kind of action is the show me what you got action. And this is likely the result when you want to create something new. You can't just propose it and then not do anything about it. You really need to put your money where your mouth is, proof in the pudding approach, and implement a dummy example. Doesn't need to be perfect, but generally you need to be able to build something and show it to people and say, hey, see, here's my idea. It's interesting. It has feet. The next kind of action is a feature request action. It could be that your idea was really succinct and strong, and this new feature is really called for development. And so this could be the case where the maintainer would say, yeah, this is a really great idea. Person A, B, and C, and Squidward, you over there. How about you guys, I'll create an issue and you guys start working on it and we're going to make this thing happen. So generally you want to find support for your action, whether it be just advice or actual help from others in the list. What should never happen during this process is anything that goes against the code of conduct. This means that you should not be put down, ridiculed for your ideas, or otherwise have someone treat you poorly. The fourth step on this road to contribution is getting that detailed feedback. I can almost guarantee you that not everyone on the list will want to give you really detailed feedback, but I can almost assure you that someone on the list will be interested or excited to give you feedback. So this is where the GitHub issue is a good place to really hash out details. Maybe you make a test implementation and you point people to it, and then they start giving you comments on the code, on the ideas, etc., etc. If your contribution doesn't require an actual implementation, then maybe you've already written up a detailed document, for example, a Google Doc or GitHub Markdown or this really cool tool called HackMD, and you would want others to just comment on the document. The fifth step on our journey to contribution is implementation. So great, we have an idea, we posted it to the list, we did some implementation or we wrote up a detailed document, we got feedback again, we're tracking progress maybe on a GitHub issue tracker. Now here's where we have fun. Well, depending on who you are, this seems like the most fun part to me. This is where you get to actually work on some kind of implementation, not kind of the dummy example, but something a little more substantial to show that your idea is really awesome. This paired with your write-up is going to be the tag team that is really going to help convince others of your idea. And to be realistic, this step's likely going to take several iterations. When you finally present your work to the OCI maintainers again, you need to stress the following points. 1. Restate the problem and what you couldn't previously do that led you to your idea. 2. Show them what is now improved and possible with your approach. 3. Be transparent about limitations. Ask again for feedback to help address them. And finally, folks, the last step in our journey is the contribution. Now, given you have a strong idea, then you do your proof of concept and you get support. The discussion is next going to move to how and when the idea can be integrated with OCI, possibly released with one of the specification projects, or just serving as a new tool altogether. Now, honestly, this final stage is going to vary depending on the proposal. And that's it. So in summary, to contribute to OCI, first figure out the kind of contribution you want to make, and then you want to develop an idea, discuss the idea, take some action to show that it has feet, get more feedback, circle around getting feedback in a loop until you have as much feedback as you need, maybe do another implementation, and then the final, here's what I got. Please reach out if you have any questions about contribution, and I hope that I'll be seeing your issues and posts on the list very soon.